Alright, another draft physics video. Respond to some comments, I guess, pretty much, and mostly holiday, unfortunately. But anyway, so this one, Sarah Pi, Sarah, I don't know. Amen. Unfortunately, you're holding the micro penis laser. This guy's pushing the boundary, so it's a pretty funny video. Really not a laser. It's really just a lot of light and focused with a lens. So it has a focal length, pretty much. So he couldn't shoot it very far without it spreading a lot. But anyway, beside the point. It is impressive. Sort of. Crazy impressive. But anyway, okay, so, yeah, enough of that. Then we'll get to holiday. So he does two things. He posted a comment, and then he posted a crappy video, of course. So I guess I'll deal with the comment first. Less offensive than the video, but whatever. Why do you have to work for others to sell the property you live in? So I'll post a link to a holiday video, why holidays at Jackass, whatever it is, on the website. The last video I made to holiday. First pointing out that why would I convey any personal, even if you PM'd me a question like that, I wouldn't give you the answer, because you've demonstrated you're a petty weasel and will misconstrue and misinterpret, and no, you will deliberately pervert my explanations to your malicious purposes, like in trying to imply I'm a hypocrite vegan, when of course I'm not. I'm more vegan than vegans are, in the sense that I don't worry about the idea of meat. I worry about what caused the meat to be produced, which is very different. I care about the suffering. I don't give a fuck about the word meat. But anyway, but you, of course, construe that to your purposes, to do malicious, petty things. So again, why would I explain the complexity of my 35-year relationship with my landlord, and the fact that, he went senile, and then his wife went senile, and I was managing the property. I can go through all the little bits. No money, all out expenses, no in expenses for 5 years. Anyway, complex circumstance. Maybe you can understand that. Maybe you can't. Maybe you never rented a place. And maybe you never understood that, well, you can't really say to your landlord, gee, you're ugly and fat, and expect to continue living where you're living. Asshole. Anyway. Also, messing about is good for generating ideas and questioning understanding, whatever, motivating future experiments to explain and such. Messing about. I don't think I'm messing about, but whatever. I mean, we've had complex kind of conversations about the nature of general relativity. So one laser experiment is related to that. The other experiments are going to be related to an alternative explanation for the two-slit experiment. So if I can dissect the pattern and explain what will affect the pattern, then I can perhaps come up with an experiment that demonstrates it can't be this silly wavy crap. So anyway, it says, but it is even better to devise an experiment to verify an experimental prediction of a theory. Well, that's exactly what I'm doing. The one prediction is that relativity is a pile of shit, and that you can't give light two momentums. It moves in a straight line in one direction. It doesn't go sideways. It doesn't do the hypotenuse vector of a different speed. It does one speed, and it does one direction, and that's it. And that's my prediction. And I intend to find an experiment that'll prove that. So I'm doing that, asshole. I mean, I'm going to call you asshole, because isn't this just asshole bullshit? I mean, it's already been like 2 months worth of conversation on this shit. You haven't been following along? Special relativity, general relativity, speed of light, going across a spaceship. You haven't been following along? And then the two-slit experiment. Again, I'm attempting to devise experiments that predict that the actual cause of the effect is the slits, the material, the matter. The matter produces a field, an electric field. The electric field produces a magnetic field, technically. But what it creates is a Ton field, and the Ton field, and the Ton field is also going to dictate what the electrons do. So there's a field of electrons, and we know that light traveling through a field of electrons is likely to be diffracted, changed in its direction. True. The only time light doesn't do that, scatter, is when there's a structure like glass or some other transparent medium where the light is conveyed in a continuous, it is replicated, it goes in one side, and it is produced on the other side exactly as it went in on the one side. So it's transmitted through the medium, maintaining its angles in the end, proportional. But otherwise it scatters, but it scatters perpendicularly. Okay, so you don't like this idea of the arbitrary perpendicular, but again, it comes up everywhere. It comes up in, it's why the atmosphere, it's why the sky is blue. It's perpendicular photon reflections. The blue light is the ultraviolet light. No, the other colored light, the non-blue, okay, is being perpendicularly refracted, and all that we get back, all we receive in terms from the sky is the blue, and vice versa. When the sun sets, all the blue light goes out perpendicularly from the sun, from the funny angle, goes out perpendicular through all the particles, the amount of particles, and all that's left is the blue. All that's left is the red. But anyway, so it's everywhere, this perpendicular thing. It's not just magnets, it's everywhere. But anyway, so I'm doing exactly that. I'm going to create experiments that validate or prove or demonstrate what I predict is the truth that currently isn't believed to be the truth. Asshole. Alright, so anyway, he put up a video. Let me find the title of it just to be fair, but it's, but he just makes this same raggedy statement. So it says wave equations and continuity. Yeah, that's what that says. But what he really says is uses some other word. Sorry. Yeah, I actually found out what was really. I'm still recovering from the lack of caffeine from quitting drinking coffee, and I really didn't realize how deep a depression it put me in. And physically, just physically, I was still lagging, and so I'd just been taking a little bit of caffeine pills. Really made a difference. Really gave me just enough energy to keep struggling on. Let's see, so he used this stupid word. I should have wrote it down. I don't know how I didn't write it down. Continuous. Yeah, so, I don't know. Continuity. Well, whatever. A question for physicists. So anyway, he's got this thing where, so he's using a word like continuous versus discrete, as if that makes sense, and it doesn't make sense to me anyway. But he's just, so anyway, in that video he's just maligning me as if I don't understand something. And yes, I don't have the field wave equations in my memory. But I know I know it's basically distance over time, blah blah blah, blah blah blah. Well, time really isn't in it. Change in vector is in it, and that's the same thing as the time. But anyway, and I'm more interested in the fields, because I'm saying the fields are something real, and he's basically defending the argument that the fields are a contrivance, and they don't have any reality, at least one of them, or two of them, I don't know. So I'll do a little explaining on that. shit, I want to play some of it, but it's, it's like 10 minutes of crap that I need to go through to, get to his little snarky digs. So I don't know if I can paraphrase. So anyway, so when he says wave equation, he's really talking about the stupid probability wave. And, that's not what I was talking about. When somebody says wave equations, I thought they meant the equations used to figure out an interference pattern, for example, in a water wave. You don't need Huygens. You don't need any bullshit premises going into that math. And I'm just arguing that it's bullshit premises that go into the wave equations, for light. And in a sense, I think that's verified because they use math that doesn't really have the bullshit in it. But the premises are where the bullshit comes from. As I pointed out, the sine, the angle theta. I don't care about the sine part of it. I just really care about the use of this angle theta. These parallel lines that aren't parallel bullshit. Anyway. Yeah, so there's no probability wave needed for real waves. They don't need a probability equation or a probability wave function. Okay, and explicitly stated, so in this video, he basically says, well, mediums, tension, all this stuff, exactly what I said in my video. So the video he links to this other video on equations and shit, an hour long, which is kind of and some of it's useful in the sense that he's explaining mathematically what these quadratic equations do and blah 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 blah, and that's, I don't think he did a very good job. Some of it gets very convoluted, and his scribblings are on top of his scribblings, and I don't, not brilliant, but some of it useful. But I mean, I said in my video about tension how waves are about tension. You have to have some force, some glue, something sticking together. He says the exact same things in here about rubber bands even. And so again, he's saying, I don't understand, yet I'm perceptive enough to understand that wave mechanics are really about tension mechanics. It's really not about the wave. It's about the medium and its movement. The fact that when pieces move, they are connected by forces, and there's a rebound. And that everything is averaged because of that. Everything's pulled into it's like the rounding of the water waves going through the slit. They're bent by the tension. I said this shit in my video, for fuck's sake. And he's saying, I don't understand. So I just say puke to you. I mean, you're just so petty. You're just never going to get past your pettiness. And that's your problem, fella. So I'll play some of this shit, but it's pretty shitty.
Saying how are placing constraints on what can happen. So, like I said, the analysis yields what we call a wave equation. The wave equation being written in the form
and he writes it again later, and he squares this one again. So everything's squared except for this. So he didn't square this, but this one's squared this time. So I don't know. Seems like it changes which is squared. So yeah, it's just this. It's just this. So he's saying the wave equation is this time equation, which time just tells you it's the status change, and that's always going to be consistent. So that's you almost know that that's almost an automatic part of it. And so and then he explains that you need to know two states. So you're trying to solve for a third state essentially. So you know the 0 state, you know the 1 state. Now you can predict the 2 state, and not very complicated.
So what's happening? Well, from the ideas of Suskins telling us about it is second order information, which means that we're always going to need to have any predictive powers.
I mean, it's kind of obvious. This v2, like he'll explain, this is just the speed. So this just ends up being the constant, like the speed of light, if it's light. And the x and the y are, just the, where you draw your hypotenuse. But you can just sort of get the point that this is the distance. So distance and velocity automatically tell you time. So you can solve for any piece by having the other pieces. So I don't see how that's terribly insightful. I'm just saying there's nothing special in there. There's no magical bit of variable.
Two pieces of information, information about two time periods, about what exactly the position is.
Oh, I'll jump ahead.
Our question is, as related here, we've defined the initial setup as some function, and what it poses a question. If we set up this situation with one function, can it time evolve into some crazy function? Will it time evolve to this function?
Yeah, well, it's only going to do that if one of the players moves, like an electron or something. So if something has to change its position, which is my point. So, no point. I mean, obviously, the thing under tension has rules. So it's like the spring constant or something. Those rules are rules. So you're not going to change that. You're not going to change how force is going to be spread over time under something under tension.
We're interested in what's going to happen. And what this differential equation says is that it poses the question, what kind of functions satisfy this? Because that is the same to say that the real physical situation, if it's resulted in these differential equations, means it is constrained by function.
Right, so but the real physical circumstance isn't in that equation. Because that equation is premised based on what you're saying these distances are. And clearly the wave equation in quantum mechanics is going to contain sine theta. So you don't have your theta in there to fuck things up.
Now, this is the problem with fields per se, is you have to accept that the electromagnetic field is like an infinite amount of layers of values.
Alright, so that's where I'd say this argument is, he's just confusing things. He has three transparencies. And I think he has three transparencies because the true way things are calculated, I mean the whole point of having this, tensors and all of this other kind of crap, is basically to describe what's happening in the three dimensions. So you have a component going this way. That means it can be going this way, and you're just counting the bit going up. And so for each dimension, you have those components. And once you have those three components, then you can have a line going in any direction. It gives you the vector in any direction by having those three numbers. So those are the three representations of the three dimensions. So it's not an infinite number of fields. In a sense, it's a continuous field that can be measured in three dimensions. One field, three dimensions.
Void space. And that is the normal way of talking about fields is as though they really are these real layers that permeate space. And the special thing about the...
Okay, so yes, that's what I'd say is the wrong way to talk about it, because obviously it's not layers, they're dimensions. So obviously it has an impact. I mean, each layer or each dimension is significant, but the layers aren't the significant thing. The significant thing is those three components tell you location. Those are the three numbers you need to know where something is and where something's going. But the field is complete. It's inside the sphere. but to know where it is inside the sphere, you have to know where it is in the 3 dimensions.
Electromagnetic field which permeates space is the sense that it only matters to light. We can't detect this as a fixed spatial coordinate system that our velocity relates to, but light can.
Well, again, you see, you say, and that's where I'm saying the whole thing breaks down, is because I don't think you understand the field, so you don't understand wave mechanics in this tense field. Now, the electromagnetic it's kind of an illusion, because the electric is the electrons. They always have the same charge, but clearly their capacity to have velocity is dependent on how close they are to each other. So the more compressed they are, the more potential they have to have velocity. That's why it's called electrical potential. It's because it's potential to have velocity. That means compression of the spring. So the more the electrons are compressed, the more, when they're liberated, the faster they're going to go. So when you pull the trigger on the gun, the more gunpowder, so to speak, or something like that. So the electrons are in a field, okay, of the quanta. So the quanta is what's in between the electrons. It's what's giving the electrons potential to spring. And the electrons filter the quanta. So they're obviously influencing which, so you could say the quanta are the magnetic component, and the electrical component is the electrons. And the electrons can combine the field strength of the quantum field. So it does the combining of the two, just like a velocity of a material object. You can launch it with 2 velocities and it will get combined into the one. That's what the electrons, the charged particles, do, is communicate one field to another field. They're the interpreter. So they're not really a field, they're in a field, is the more precise way to say it. The magnetic field is in control, ultimately, the one field of quanta. It does gravity, it does the nuclear force, it does magnetism. And electricity is just a consequence of the field created by magnetism. The electrons are moved because they're polarized. And magnets create polarized quanta. I think that's probably suitable.
Which is kind of strange.
So we jump ahead a
If you add
little.
any other in, is equal to 1 over mu naught, what's the electric one? That's it, permeability. 2 constants. And that very fact, it's kind of, these are the constants of tension in nature, I guess, are implied.
Right, so you use the word tension again. So again, a word I used in my video. So explicitly recognizing that the electric field is just a consequence of the tension created in the magnetic field.
So if you wanted to consider this to be a real phenomena of fields, they're kind of, there is some kind of needed relation or explanation as to the properties of this fabric is kind of defined by these electromagnetic permeability and electric permeability. The magnetic permeability.
And again, this permeability word really just means how influenced is something by polarization. So common matter isn't influenced by polarization because all the perpendicular thing happens randomly. So there's no directionality, no current created. Now in conductors and in ferrous materials, the opposite's true. Domains are created, and the domains each have a current. So the one force goes in, and it always flows perpendicular in the sense that it will do the circle. It will go up, and it will go down. And that guarantees that movement is what creates more filtering, the magnetism. So once the domains are established, by the movement of the current, then the domains become filters, which end up creating more potential to create movement in something else, because it's creating these filters. So it's shooting the two polarized forms of quanta in concentrations, one coming out of one end and one coming out of the other, and that's how it comes out. When the red comes out, this, out of a magnet, it's going into the magnet, okay, as back in. So it's not like it's coming from nowhere. It's cycling. It's going through the inside and coming out the outside. But it has to go back in again to go back out again. And both things are doing that. Obviously. Okay, so we'll keep going. I mean, in round 39 it gets a little interesting, so I'll jump ahead a little bit. I think 39 or something, he says something stupid. Oh, 36 actually. Well, let's go back to 36 then. I thought it was later than that. 36, 18, we'll try.
It's being the result of tension, and I pointed out that you don't hear of anything like that with regards to light. But the fact that it outputs this equation, and that the velocity is actually related, the actual light equation that pops out, I think v squared is equal to 1 over mu naught, that's the electric one.
Okay, so he's really coming up with the speed of light in a secondary way. But anyway, the important part was he said the word tension, and it's about this stupid symmetry thing. He didn't say symmetry, but that's really what it's about, is the symmetry. What goes in it's always replaced. I mean, it's not a, there's conservation rules. Okay, so 51, we get something about fake fields or something. So we'll go there and be done with this video. I mean, I didn't get to the parts where he's he's talking to me, or talking about me in with his usual dismissive tone.
Just to understand the totally abstract nature of fields and the totally artificial construct that, for example, magnetic fields are.
Okay, so he just uses, so they're abstract, they're artificial, all of these kind of words. And again, I'll just go back to the reality, which is, yeah, that's the problem. Okay, bent space took a big hunk of force and took it out of the physical universe. Virtual photons are used to explain magnetism, when they should be described as what they really are, which is actual tons. And the same is true for the nuclear forces tying electrons to protons. They use virtual photons to maintain the tension between those two objects. The simple argument to that explanation of a wacky field, a field made of fake things and bent things, is to create a field of quanta. And again, if you just polarize it and then create filters for the polarization, so you just create two kinds, black and white, you create mechanisms that create this perpendicular thing where the white goes perpendicular, the black goes straight, and vice versa. That simple mechanism will allow you to filter the polarization and therefore create beams of force. And beams of force become currents in conductors. The current isn't the electrons moving. The current is the force pushing the electrons closer to each other, creating the velocity, the magnetism. The magnetism is the force. You apply more force, then the electron goes forward, the electron ahead of it gets pushed forward, the electron ahead of it gets pushed forward. But it still forces, it's still the force of the quanta, the virtual tons, whatever the fuck you want to call them, that are doing the work. They're the field. The one fucking field of things. The only things in the actual physical universe. Everything is made of them.
I saw it in a many moons ago, and I can't quite place that particular quote. When I saw it in one of the Asian universities lectures, and he said to me, he said to the lecturer, that all magnetic fields are really relativistic effects of electric fields. Okay, so he's saying that the electric field is creating the virtual photons, instead of saying the quanta field is creating the movement in the electrons. So the more, obviously in my opinion, more rational explanation would to say the field is made of the thing they call virtual. That's the field. And it's moving the thing that isn't virtual for sure, which is the electron. But the field is real. It's not nothing. It's not made of nothing. It's not an ether. It's made of real bits moving the speed of light. And the ones we see are the ones at specific frequencies. And the ones that don't come at specific frequencies, we don't see. But we see their effects. Gravity, magnetism, the nuclear force. That's the effect of tons without frequency. That is, they're not bullets coming from the same gun. They're bullets coming from all kinds of guns from all kinds of directions. Alright, so that's enough of that. I mean, I just want to say fuck you for your attitude, but what's the point? We've been over this before. You're going to claim I don't understand. Well, I'm going to prove in the end that you were the asshole who didn't understand, and your piety and your arrogance is obvious and to your discredit. Fuckhead. So anyway, moving on. So Jesse, so another guy pretending to be a man when he's probably just a dickless wonder, micro-penised fat guy, pretending he's still a man somehow, when no, he doesn't have any of the attributes of a man. Ballless fucking wonder. There is a lot I could respond to. Again, the same old bullshit. Yeah, it'd be interesting if you actually respond to the points made in my videos and understood that I've made hundreds of them now and you don't want to be up to speed. Well, that's your bad in a sense. You're going to critique something you don't want to pay too much attention to. That's fine, but I'm going to point out how I've already been over this, and I've already been over that, and I've already explained this, and I've already explained that. Fuckhead. I'll just mention that you claim the double-slit pattern is created when the two single-slit patterns get superimposed. I basically just said in the video that they don't get superimposed. That what they do is get combined. And I said in the video previous to that I believe it's like electricity. Like if you take two electric plates, alright, and you put a third plate in between them, that you'll create two lesser voltages between the, you'll cut the voltage in half between the two plates. So your actual voltage is 25,000 volts, let's say, but the voltage between the middle plate and the external plate is going to be half of that. You get it? That there's a field created by the plates. So the plates are causing the mixing because the voltage on the middle impediment doesn't reveal the actual voltage, which is 2500, let's say. It only shows the 1100s. And that's the difference. That's where it's combined. It's mixed. The electrons in the matter in between the two surfaces is combining the forces. Asshole. Not superimposing them. Then that means you think there would be no double slit pattern when there's no single slit pattern. Which I don't even understand what the fuck that could possibly mean when there's no single slit pattern. If there's no single slit pattern, there's no slit, idiot.
are the slits are way too wide for there to be a pattern. And obviously there's a double slit pattern when you remove the two external surfaces. You still have a pattern because you have two surfaces still in the game. It's about the surfaces, asshole. So why can't you test this? Well, I plan to try testing it. Are you even thinking about what you're saying before you say it? Yes, I've drawn pictures of it. I've said things explicitly that you don't argue with. Instead, you just make a statement like that. Yes, I do think about it, asshole. I've thought about it more deeply and more seriously than you have, you trivial, naysaying, nitpicking douchebag, you ignorant douchebag. You presume you have some sort of authority to talk down when you're the one with the lesser understanding of what exactly is happening in the two-slit experiment, cunt. Seriously, either you're deluding yourself massively, which I could say to you, thinking you're the Duke when you're really a dud, or you really have an inability to think things through. Well, again, I could just say that about you. I could type that kind of crap on other people's videos. Seriously, either you're deluding yourself massively or you really have an inability to think things through. You could say that to any fucking person on the internet. It's useless tripe, okay? And you're too big a pussy and a sissy and a girly man to understand what putrid cooties you have to be able to type tripe like that. Or maybe a little bit of both. Yes, well, I'm rubber, you're glue, pussy fuck. You're a gutless wonder who doesn't make an argument. You just make crappy troll remarks. Because there's no argument here. You're not explaining anything. So again, what's on the table, besides the relativity stuff we keep going over, is there's a pattern in the double slit experiment. A pattern where there's bars inside of another pattern. Okay, so we've been over this, but I'll do it one more time, and then so you have math that explains these bars. Okay, this idiotic wave equation crap. Okay, and those bars happen with a single slit and a double slit. Now, what you don't have, okay, maybe you can make math, a second formula that will take these numbers, a progressively declining bar pattern, okay, and put this envelope over it, and so you can do that. But what you don't have is a physical explanation. See, I mean, you can do your wave interference pattern pictures all you want, but they're not going to give you an explanation for why there's two patterns here. They're not going to do that. So you don't have Huygens. There's no Huygens explanation for the mixture. See, the two are combined. Two things are being mixed, not superimposed, mixed. And you have no theoretical explanation for it. No theory of a mechanical mechanism. See, at least with Huygens you have some theory of a mechanism, but Huygens isn't enough to explain the double slit experiment. Huygens doesn't help you. So you still lack an explanation for the combining, the mixing of the two interference patterns. The two kinds of the problem is you got four surfaces, okay, in the double slit experiment, and I would argue that two surfaces are controlling one thing and two surfaces are controlling the other. And clearly, like I stated, see, this would be 25,000 volts, you could say, on these two ends over here. So this is 0 and that's 25,000, and these would just be 1,200 jumps. And if you have just a single impediment, then the thickness of this distance would have some effect on how much charge you could have on these two surfaces if these two surfaces didn't exist. That's like a capacitor or something. Thicker, more charge. Too thin, no charge, because the charge will go right through the medium, right through the material. Alright, that's probably enough. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else I want to get to in this video. A lot of stuff to do, you know. So yeah, I'm still playing with the laser. I made a couple of different of these slit thingies that I can adjust, but I still haven't gotten a decent pattern out of them. You know, and I've gotten excellent. I mean, the surfaces are really, you know, they did work cleaning the surfaces. So it's kind of irritating that I don't have a better pattern. Yeah, this looks like the new one. No, it's not. Where's my new image? Should be in this folder. Strange. Let me see. It should be in this folder. Refresh. That is fucked up. Oh, that's right. It's a video. I forgot. Yeah, it is a video. Ah, now I remember. Okay, and I put it where? Hopefully I put it in here. Double click, please. Play the video, please. Ah, there it is. Alright, so you can see that's pretty clean. So it's got this little fragment here. But generally speaking, so those are the two slits. So now this new one, this is a little over a millimeter, a centimeter. No, it's a little over a millimeter from here to here. So it's like 1.5, 1.25 millimeters. And so these are close to like 3/4 or 80% or 90% of a millimeter, the two openings. But you can see they're fairly clean. No crap on the edges, except for those two little thingies there, but otherwise it's clean edges. But as stated, I'm not getting anything in terms of a decent pattern, which is really surprising me, because they're all on the same plane. It's, you know, everything looks good. It's thick enough paper to block all the light. Like I said, it's coated. You can even see the coating is reflecting light. Anyway, but yeah, I did get my little camera microscopy thing to work pretty well, which is pretty cool. I mean, it's pretty close up. I mean, this is 2 millimeters for that whole screen. So that's pretty damn good. So I should be able to get some good bug stuff and whatnot. As I got to work on the tablet, I took the video on the tablet, which is even more impressive for me. So I can go mobile with it. And technically, I should be able to go underwater. So we'll see. You know, see how things go this summer. Lots of interesting projects to work on. So anyway, so yeah, I have to work on the quality of the laser light. So I'm going to even go back to just using regular light and put it through an aperture and see if I can get a good pattern, and then I'll work backward from there. Okay. Yeah, probably good enough. So, yeah, I think that's all I need to respond to. So this Dave guy said you might try a laser with a focusable beam. You know, that's for the long distance thing. I do have a focusable beam, but you know, it just makes the dot bigger. It doesn't really, you know, so it evens it out, but over a distance it's still going to diverge, so I'll just end up making my spot bigger, and I don't know if I want to make it bigger, but we'll see. I mean, there's lots of things I might want to do. I might want to put a bunch of apertures all the way across to try to keep forcing light that isn't diffracted to be the light that hits the tree. So anyway, But I don't want to use lenses where I don't have to, because I think that fucks the whole game. I mean, you know, that's just putting more noise in the signal, in a sense. Anyway, and yeah, I don't think there's anything else. It's probably enough. So, till next time, such.